Hi everyone, it's Erin from EB Mixed Media on Instagram and YouTube. Today I'm working with products from Grafix Arts. We're going to be making this really cute fall pumpkin wall art. For this project, we need very few materials. We're using Grafix Dura-Lar. This is a two-sided matte film. It comes in pads of 25 pieces, and they're 9 inches by 12 inches. I've taken one sheet and cut it into 2-inch strips in order to make it easier to work with. We're going to be decorating each strip individually to make our pumpkin. We'll affix these strips onto some basic cardstock to make our wall art. We'll be using Artist-Tac, which is a permanent dry adhesive. It comes in 25 sheets that are 5.5 by 9 inches each. Let's start decorating our Dura-Lar. We'll be using several techniques so that each strip is unique. To decorate my first piece of Dura-Lar, I'm using alcohol ink markers to make stripes in alternating colors along the length of the entire piece. To finish it off, I'm adding random stripes using an acrylic paint marker in gold. On my second piece, I'm using alcohol ink marker in a bright orange and a stencil to create a circular pattern along the length of the Dura-Lar. For this third piece of Dura-Lar, I'm using Neocolor 2 crayons in pretty fall colors. I'm coloring patches in varying shades and using a watercolor brush to blend them together. Once it's dry, I'm going to use acrylic ink and a fan brush to add gold splatters. For this fourth technique, I smear Distress Oxide on an acrylic block and spray with water, and then simply pull the Dura-Lar through it. Once that's dry, I use a different shade of Distress Oxide and stamp pretty fall leaves onto the Dura-Lar. For the next technique, I'm stamping Distress ink in walnut stain directly onto the Dura-Lar and then using a wet wipe and a watercolor brush to blend it. I use the same Distress Oxide color on the stamp and apply that to the Dura-Lar. This gives a nice neutral for the pumpkin stem. For this final piece of Dura-Lar, I'm using watercolor in a variety of fall shades. Alternate between adding watercolor, drying, and then adding another layer of color. This will build up depth and allow for rich color. Next, I'm using a makeup sponge to apply gold acrylic ink through a stencil and get some bling on this piece. Now it's time to sketch out our pumpkin. On a second sheet of Dura-Lar and using a pencil, draw a simple pumpkin. If you make a mistake, you can wipe off the pencil with a wet wipe. Make sure to include 5 sections to your pumpkin. Using scissors, cut out each individual shape of your pumpkin. Arrange your decorated Dura-Lar strips into a pleasing pattern. You'll be cutting one piece of pumpkin from each decorated strip. Use the neutral piece for your stem. I actually made my pumpkin pieces too big, so I simply trimmed them down when I was cutting them out. Using a pencil, trace your pattern onto your decorated Dura-Lar and cut out each piece. So I've cut out all of my pumpkin pieces, and I even had enough of a scrap left of Dura-Lar to make a tiny leaf as well. It's not necessary, but it adds a nice little touch. Here I have an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. Any type of paper would do, watercolor, mixed media paper. This is what I happen to have on hand. I've got a frame here as well. I'm not sure where I got this. It seems to be a little bit of an odd size, but you'll want a frame with a mat that is 8 by 10 or something that fits the size of paper you decide to use. It's handy to use the matting to get your placement right. That fits perfectly. To affix these Dura-Lar pieces to our page, we're going to use this Artist-Tac. You can tear back the top sheet and you'll see there's very fine little dots of glue on the bottom. I like to start with my middle piece and build around it. I'm going to lie this on there and then burnish it. to make sure that that glue completely attaches to the back. That should do it. When you peel it off, all of those little glue dots have now transferred to your piece of Dura-Lar. And there we go. And now to finish it off, I'll use my Sakura Jelly Roll pen in black to add a couple little finishing touches. We'll finish our piece by inserting it in the frame, securing it with some archival tape. And there you have it, a lovely fall pumpkin to hang in your home for the season. Thanks for joining me. If you'd like to see more of my work, you can find me at eb_mixedmedia on Instagram and YouTube. And find more fun projects at grafixarts.com.